Hi and welcome to my channel. So I have been tagged. I was tagged by Kim from Middle of the Book March for this really wonderful tag video, and this is the favorite characters tag, and this is where I will be talking about some of my favorite characters. So there are a few questions, of course, as usual, about some characters. I am going to answer these questions by using characters mostly from the books that I've read recently, because before this year, that is last year, and for that, I did not exactly use Goodreads. I did not record or write down or write blogs on books that I've read. So I can't exactly remember many of the books that I've read, especially considering the fact that those books are not with me right now in my rented house. So I'm gonna use most of the my more recent reads. Let's start with the first question. The first one is a character that you love fiercely. So for this question, I think it's kind of interesting, because I actually took some time to really think about which character that I want to use to answer this question. And then I realized that I don't exactly have a character from literary fiction novels that is suitable for this question, because I find that I don't exactly love characters from novels like really fiercely, because I just see them. I just see them for one book, or maybe more than one book if they are in a series, but that's pretty much it. However, I do have a character that I just love very much. But this character is not from a novel. This character is from comics, because surprise, I also read comics, especially Marvel comics. I really love the X-Men. So the character that I love fiercely is Emma Frost. So if you're not familiar with comics, this character is really interesting to me. She is especially interesting visually, and the reason why I just love this character so much is, okay, she is a superhero, but before that, she was a supervillain. So she kind of turns good, and she has really awesome superpowers as well. She has incredible telepathic abilities, and she can also turn herself into diamond. And she's just all around fabulous. She has great personality. She is super witty. She is really snarky. She is very bitchy, and she is just so awesome. And I just like this character so much because she just exudes like this really high level, like fantasy level of confidence and self-confidence. And reading her, it kind of feels like you are there, and you are able to feel that awesomeness of this character. So, I feel like I could feel inspired by this character, despite the fact that her identity is completely different than mine, but she is just an incredible comic book character. So the second question is a character that is heavily flawed, but you can't help but love. So this can actually apply to many characters. But one character that I can remember is from a book that I read like a year ago, and this book was The Garden of Evening Mist by Twan. And the main character's name is someone that really fits this question. Her name is Ling, and so this book is actually about the story of Ling, who is a judge, and the story is set in around 1960s Malaysia. And at the time, Malaysia, or rather Malaya, was actually in this like really awful place, because there was this the conflict that was ongoing between the government and also the communists at the time. And so things were really chaotic. There was a lot of violence, and right before that, like a couple of decades before that, was the occupation by the Japanese. So Yunling has actually experienced some really awful stuff during the Japanese occupation. Essentially, she and her sister has been sent to a Japanese concentration camp, where they have to like work and work hard labor, and her sister kind of had to become a kind of was forced to become a comfort woman in the camp. And when the Japanese surrenders and they want to abandon the camp, they literally bury the camp with everyone in it. But Yunling survives. Her sister does not survive, and Yunling is really struggling with this like really dark memory in her past. She is having difficulty trying to find closure regarding her sister's death. And so at the same time, because of all these events, she has this like really strong prejudice towards the Japanese people and the Japanese culture and all that. She actually is trying to do something to honor her sister. Basically, her sister loves Japanese garden, and so she wants to recreate a Japanese garden to remember her sister. But in order to do that, she has to sought the help of one person who is actually a Japanese gardener. And so she is constantly battling this like really crazy internal conflicts in her, where she has to kind of deal with her own prejudice, but at the same time she also has to try to overcome that in order for her to achieve the goal, and that is to recreate a Japanese garden in remembrance of her sister. So I think that Yunling is like this really flawed character. She has this really strong racist tendency towards the Japanese people, but at the same time she's also realizing that that is something that really is it's kind of a hindrance for her, and it is something that she has to overcome, despite the fact that she feels she can justify her racism and her prejudice. And I just find that really compelling, because it paints a really complex picture on what this character is, and I just appreciate that very much. So the third question is for a character that made you laugh out loud. And so I just remember this book, one that I read very recently, and it is a concise Chinese-English dictionary for lovers by Xiaolu. So the main character in this book, her name is Twan, or Z. Z is having like this really difficult time trying to adjust in England. She's from China. She's from like a small town in China, and she's trying to kind of acclimate herself with the life in London. And it gets kind of hilarious for the readers, seeing her struggles, especially considering the fact that she has like she's not really able to converse in English very fluently, at least at the beginning. And with that, in all of these hilarity involving language barrier ensues. And I just find that her character has this like really naive tendency, but at the same time she has her own belief, due to the fact that, you know, she comes from a place with a totally different culture. But all of those clashes that she faces, those cultural clashes in London, they just look like really, really hilarious. So I actually giggled like a few times reading this book. I seldom laugh out loud in the sense that, you know, how I laugh out loud at someone when I read a book. So I would say giggle is probably my equivalent of laughing out loud. But anyway, this is a very funny book, and certainly Zed is a very funny character. So the first question is for a child character that you like, and I just want to talk about a couple of books. The first one is actually something that I read much earlier this year, and it's Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. So I'm not sure if, you know, saying that the character of Carl or Callie, who is the main character in this book, is kind of it kind of fits with this question, but I think it does, because this book actually starts with Callie / Carl as a child, and I just like the fact that even as a child character in this book, I find that Callie has this level of self-awareness as a child on how she, and later he, is unable to kind of sense their place, like their right place in the world. Already as a child, Callie already experienced some sort of confusion. I think that's really interesting, because usually I don't really like child characters, especially the ones that are portrayed as precocious and super smart. But in this book, I just find that Callie is kind of a perceptive character, especially on how they kind of view their own self and their own body, and I just appreciate that very much. Another book with really nice child character is We Need New Names by NoViolet Bulawayo. So again, I usually don't like child characters, but then this book pretty much is filled with child characters. The main character of this book is also a child character named Darling, and she's from Zimbabwe. This book is about her life in Zimbabwe, and later her life in the US once she emigrates to the US. And we see all of this like layers in her experience. And the biggest part that I really love in this book is how she learns about her own experience, the kind of realization, the kind of big revelation that she has over about her own experience, about her own life later in this book. I just find that really awesome. I find that really compelling. So the next question is an animal character that you love. And I'm not sure how to answer this question, because I've been trying like to think about an animal character that I like for a while now, but I can't think of any. Probably because so far from all of the things that I've read with animal characters, I am not really able to resonate with them really well. I can't help but to remember Watership Down by Richard Adams, which was, you know, literally a book filled with animal characters. But I can't say that I like any of the characters. I find that they are decent characters, but not exactly characters that I would like. Most of them are rabbits. I thought that Watership Down was a sci-fi, a space opera book, but yeah, it was all about rabbits. I read another book earlier this year, which was called The Traveling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arikawa. But then, I don't like the cat in that book. Like, that cat is just way too sassy for my taste, so I dislike that cat. So I think I'm gonna pass on this question because I just can't think of any animal character that I like. So the next question is a strong woman character that you like. And oh boy, like, if the last question was something that I can't answer, this question is something that I can't answer because there are just way too many of them. So I just gotta pick like two at random, because you can simply pick two at random and you'll find a strong women character, because strong women characters are awesome. The first book that I'm just gonna mention is by Olga Tokarczuk, and this one is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. So the main character in this book, her name is Janina, and she lives somewhere in the mountains near the border between of Poland and Czechia. So this character is a really interesting one because Janina is kind of an older woman. She works as a teacher. She used to be an engineer. She has this like really strong affinity with nature and environment. She has kind of a passion with astrology, which is really interesting. Astrology is kind of like a big part of this book. And she has this like really strong personality. She is like super headstrong, especially when it comes to the things that she's really passionate about, like nature. And she has this like really no nonsense attitude, and she is persistent. Like, she is crazy persistent in this book. So you have this like really strong woman character who is not young, who is not like physically strong, but she is an older woman who exudes this kind of level of energy and power over herself, and I just like that very much. And if you kind of finish this novel, then you realize that she does have that level of spunk with her. So I'm not gonna spoil anything for you, but yeah, she is just a spunky old woman. And another book that I would just want to show, also something that I read this year, is Convenience Store Woman, which also contains a character, a female character that I would consider as a strong woman. Her name is Keiko, and she's a convenience store worker. She is not a strong woman in the traditional sense that she exudes like this high level of confidence, but she is strong in such a way that she is quite self-aware in terms of what she wants. But of course, we see in this book, like, she also goes through a phase of muddled period where she kind of temporarily loses herself in a certain kind of crisis of identity or something like that. But she comes back from it. And I don't know, that speaks strong woman for me. Anyone who undergoes that kind of experience is a strong person, because it kind of reflects how they are able to get back from a period where they temporarily do not know themselves. So number 7 is for a brave character that you like, that you admire. And I remember there's this one book, Captain Corelli's Mandolin, and it has this really awesome character that I still remember until today. His name is Carlo Guercio, and he's an Italian soldier who enlists in the military for the Second World War. This character is secretly gay, and he has some kind of trouble expressing himself in the public. So he joins the military with the hopes that he would probably be able to kind of divert his distress in his own sexuality. And at the same time, of course, in the military, he's able to kind of look at other guys. But I just think that Carlo is a really brave character, not only because of all the fighting and combat that he does in the battles in World War II, but he's brave because of something that he does in this book. Something big, something dramatic, that if he does not do what he does, this book would definitely not end the way it does. So I think that Carlo is a really awesome character, and the way that this character story arc is ended in this book is just, it's kind of, it makes you feel something. Definitely made me feel something. And I just think that he's a really awesome character, really awesome, incredible character in this book. Question number 8. A character that scares the hell out of you. I am seldom scared by characters, but I just want to mention there's one character that I feel a little bit scared of in this book, A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mystery. And one of the characters in this book is the beggar master, who is actually the he is kind of the boss of a begging operation. So basically he controls like a troop or a group of beggars, and they're all working under him. So all these beggars have to kind of beg in the streets, and they have to like report the money that they got to the beggar master. So A Fine Balance is actually a story that takes place sometime in the 1980s, late 1970s to early 1980s India. And I just find it really interesting because it has all of this really lush and chaotic but interesting historical background. So the beggar master is someone who operates in the city, and he as a character is like really chaotic. His presence in this book, he can be quite ruthless, but at the same time later in this book you also see that he has layers in his characterization. But for me personally, I find that the beggar master is like this really scary character because he's kind of unpredictable. Again, he's ruthless, so you can't exactly like know what he's going to do to your favorite character or some other characters. So he's really hard to predict, and that is why I think he's kind of scary in this book, because you don't know what this character is going to be like later in the plot. Like, what is his alignment and all that? It's really difficult to figure out. Next one is question number 9, a really mean character. I just want to use this opportunity to kind of talk about one character that I find really mean. And it is from Annie Proulx's The Shipping News. The character, Petal, who was actually the ex-wife of the main character in this book, Coil, she is a very mean woman. So essentially, she just marries Coil because she finds him to be some sort of a sexual conquest. So she does not like really have strong love for him. And so when they are married and when they have children in this book, she just leaves him and fools around with other men and does not care about her family. I think that this character is just super mean. And I think that meanness is really emphasized when you pair her with someone that is very meek and submissive like Coil. So I think probably that's why Petal appears like really mean. But I think even without that comparison, she is already a very mean person. So number 10 is for a character that you really hate. And usually when a book has a character that I really hate, I might DNF it unless if that character is a really minor character, or at most a supporting character. But one book that I actually kind of finished that has a character that I really hate was Notes from Underground by Fyodor Dostoevsky. And the character, the narrator in this story, who is also the main character, he is not named in this story, but dude is just so pathetic. Like, this book pretty much contains like all of the things that he's thinking about, and how he finds that his life is just pretty much filled with ennui, and he is super cynical, and he's really apathetic. When it comes to reading stories, regardless how complex or how deep a story can be, I tend to focus on the story first. And when I focus on the story, I tend to kind of imagine myself and how it would be if I were to interact with the characters. So when it comes to Notes from Underground, and especially with this unnamed narrator, I would kind of imagine him and our interaction together. Like, maybe he is my roommate, and I would just kind of imagine like our relationship would be kind of not fun. Like, he's just going to be like really cynical all the time. He does not do stuff, like he is kind of lazy, he's idle. There's also this scene in Notes from Underground, I think it's in the part 2 of the book, where he is treating this woman in such a douchey way that, you know what, I just can't make myself liking this character. Like, this character, he might have some valid points in his thinking, even though I don't really agree with all of the things that he thinks about in this book. But at the end of the day, this guy is trash. Whew. So all of those are the questions for favorite characters tag. So that's it for the video, and I'll see you again in a different one. So until then, take care, thanks for watching, and bye!